A very good evening to each and every one of you. We are having this fifth episode in our series on health. And we are now talking about boosting our immunity. This is the third in the series of boosting your immunity. The last one was on personal hygiene. So many of you have been listening. What is more important is to put into practice. We need to make use of whatever we are sharing with you so that application of the knowledge is more important. We go into the next, and this is a very important topic for all of us, and especially all the housewives who are in charge of preparing our food at our own homes. Welcome our present engineer Kenneth Lopish, the Assistant Secretary of St. John Ambulance.
Good evening, everyone, and a warm welcome to you. My Mogatso Yokar. Today's topic is very important and can virtually be equated to a matter of life and death. While the definition on the upcoming slide tells us that food safety is about handling, preparing, and storing food to prevent infection, food safety as such has a very broad concept. It begins right at the stage of cultivation of crops or breeding of livestock. Today we see a rise in cases of dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's. What could be the cause? This is largely due to the use of excessive pesticides, insecticides, as well as GMOs, are genetically modified foods, which are slowly but steadily flooding our markets. Glyphosate is a herbicide used to kill weeds, and in the long run, it kills us. We have cases of cattle being injected with hormones like oxytocin. What for, you will ask? To increase milk production, but ultimately this comes at a heavy price in terms of health for all of us. Chicken are injected with powerful antibiotics as well as hormones to make them grow faster and bigger. Ultimately, those antibiotics enter our bodies and make us resistant to antibiotics without actually being prescribed with antibiotics by a doctor. Don't go far away. We had the recent saga of formalin-laced fish being fed to us from the Margao fish market. So the start of this food chain is most important. And this is the part that is not in our control as consumers. Unfortunately, this part often begins with corruption and corrupt practices. It is here that the regulatory authorities, the government, have a big role to play. Now, as consumers, when we talk about food safety, our roles begin with when we go out to buy our food supplies. For us, food safety begins on an assumption that all processes have been correctly followed till the food items are picked up from the market or supermarket, or as is in vogue today, delivered through online apps to our doorsteps. Our job begins with selecting a vendor that maintains basic hygiene levels. See that he himself is hygienic first. His storage is hygienic. his handling is hygienic. Now, we come to one subset of food safety, and that is what is in our control. For us, food hygiene means protecting food against contamination and bacterial or parasitical infestation. Now, we need to prepare food in a safe manner to ensure good health promotion. I'm sure all of us at some point of time have suffered from a bout of stomach illness. We've had a stomach upset. We've suffered a case of food poisoning. But I don't think we've actually stopped and thought as to how big a problem this is. And when you look at the stats, 600 million people suffering from food poisoning every year. And the sad part is 420,000 lives are lost due to food poisoning every year. Even more tragic is the fact that 125,000 deaths are among children under the age of 5. So children naturally have a lower immune system and hence are soft targets. Now, food poisoning generally occurs in the form of diarrheal diseases, and some of those diarrheal diseases are common to us and are names that we've heard. So we have cholera, we have typhoid, we have dysentery, we have diarrhea, hepatitis. These are just to name a few of the common diseases caused by food and water contamination. Now, when we talk about hepatitis, there are different types of hepatitis, but basically here it is type A and E, which can be transmitted through water and food, and that is because it is contaminated with human feces. Now, luckily we have vaccines for hepatitis A and typhoid in our country, and this is something that maybe people who travel a lot for leisure or for work or for study purposes in India, maybe this is something, these are the vaccinations that we need to look at. Now, diarrhea and dysentery are often terms which are used interchangeably, but there is a difference between the two. Now, diarrhea is a disease of the small bowels, that's the small intestine, and due to the bacteria like E. coli, it results in a watery stool. In this case, the patient may or may not have abdominal pain, cramps, or fever. Dysentery, on the other hand, affects the colon, which is our large intestine, and results in a mucoid, bloody stool, which further results in abdominal pain, vomiting, cramp, high fever, and weakness. And this is usually caused by bacteria such as E. coli and Salmonella, to name a few. Now, when we talk about differences between diarrhea and dysentery, remember that diarrhea can be easily cured, though there would be cases where complications do arise, while dysentery is more serious and requires medical intervention. Now, the danger in both these forms, in both these diseases, is that of dehydration. And as we've seen in our previous session, dehydration is not only about losing water, but also about losing essential salts in the form of electrolytes. So the focus over here is to prevent dehydration, and we look at ORS, which is your oral rehydration salts, a glass of water with a spoon of sugar or a pinch of salt is an ORS. If you're looking at another natural form of ORS, we are looking at tender coconut water. And also commercially available in the pharmacies, you have Electral. So the focus is on drinking plenty of liquids. And when we talk about water, it is clean and pure water. Now, there are other viruses as well. Norovirus is also known as stomach flu. There is rotavirus, which is a common cause of diarrhea among infants and children. This has a vaccine. Campylobacter is a bacteria, and this is more to do with uncooked meat or improperly processed meat. When we talk of the causes of food poisoning, we've just looked at viruses and bacteria. You can add parasites, insects, other organisms or microorganisms to this list, and these are biological contaminants. We also have physical contaminants, and that is in the form of plastic, steel wool, glass, metal, or other foreign objects. A strand of hair, which we do come across in our food, that would be a physical contaminant. We come to the third group, and that is a chemical contaminant. And we spoke in the introduction about pesticides, herbicides, rodenticides, insecticides. There are also heavy metals like arsenic, mercury. We spoke about metal mercury, which is common in big fish, as well as other toxins. These are our chemical contaminants. Now, if one is observant while consuming their food, physical contaminants are normally visible. When it comes to chemical contaminants, well, these may not be visible, but we may be able to detect them through our smell or our taste buds. Microbiological contamination. Now, this is dangerous because neither can we see, smell, or taste microbes in our food. The effects of food poisoning now, usually seen between 24 to 36 hours. It could happen a lot earlier and could continue for as long as 7 days. Symptoms are as stomach cramps, diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, fever and chills, headaches, and dehydration. When we talk about contamination, we also need to understand that there is cross-contamination. And when we talk about cross-contamination, there are three types of cross-contamination. So we have direct contact, and this is basically to do with raw food coming in contact, directly in contact with cooked food. The indirect method is where you have an intermediate surface in between. We will see as we progress what these surfaces are. The third method of cross-contamination is the drip method, and this is basically raw food which drips the liquid onto cooked food. We'll see about this as well. Now, the beginning of hygiene, of the beginning when you talk about contamination, begins with the food handlers. And anyone who basically is involved in touching food, in storing food, in preparing food, in serving food, everyone is a food handler. And when we talk about food handlers, it's personal hygiene, which is right at the top of the ladder over here. So ensure that food handlers maintain high levels of personal hygiene at all times. One cannot stress enough on a good hand wash. And remember, a good hand wash involves soap and water, has to be for 20 to 30 seconds, and has 7 steps to it. Always follow appropriate sanitation measures. This is important. Have as few people as possible handle food. Remember that we wear protective clothing while preparing food, while serving food, and this is in the form of gloves, hairnets, aprons, face masks today because of COVID-19. But one must pay attention to the cleanliness of this protective clothing. Now, keeping raw and cooked food separate is very important, and this begins right at the stage of preparing our food. So have separate work areas or preparation surfaces such as our tables and cutting boards. This is not always possible. It's not always practical. Space constraints sometimes come in the way. And as such, I'm sure you'll all agree that a thorough cleaning and disinfecting all contact surfaces, utensils, and equipment between tasks is important. This is all the more important when you're moving from handling raw food to cooked food. We come to fridge storage. And when we talk about fridge storage, remember that everything placed in the fridge should be covered, not only to protect it, but other food in the fridge as well. Keep cooked food items at the top of the fridge. Raw food should be at the bottom. Remember, we spoke about the drip method of cross-contamination. And this is to prevent raw food leaking or dripping the liquids onto cooked foods. Raw meat kept in the fridge should be adequately wrapped to prevent leakage of juices. This could be in the form of good food grade containers, plastic containers, or stainless steel containers. Ideally, now, separate fridges or deep freezers should be used for storing raw food and ready to eat food. Again, something which is maybe not very practical. So hence, use the different compartments in your fridge well. They are provided for a purpose. They are provided so that you prevent cross contamination. The temperature of a fridge is very important, and we will be talking more about this and the reason for this in our upcoming session next Sunday. But remember to set your refrigerator to 40 degrees Fahrenheit, that is 4 degrees Celsius or below, and the freezer to 0 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 18 degrees Celsius or below. Most of our modern day fridges have a digital thermometer, which gives us a temperature reading. However, since temperature control is very important, it would be a worthwhile investment to maybe buy one of the commercially available thermometers. Don't overstuff your fridge. This not only reduces the efficiency, the cooling efficiency, but increases the chances of cross-contamination. Egg placement. Now, it's very tempting. It's very tempting to place the eggs in the egg trays which are provided on the fridge doors. But remember, the fridge doors are the warmest part of the refrigerator. There is constant opening and closing. So place your eggs in the egg trays and place it in the normal part of the refrigerator. When it comes to fruits and vegetables, we have these separate baskets or trays at the bottom of the refrigerator. They are normally provided with lids, so use the lids. And remember that fruits emit ethylene gas, and this degrades vegetables. So separate your fruits from the vegetables. Use separate packaging for fruits and vegetables. In the past, we had to defrost our refrigerators on a regular basis. And while doing so, we would have to give the fridge a thorough cleaning. But with the advent of frost-free refrigerators, I think this is a practice which a lot of us do not do. It's very important that we clean our refrigerators on a weekly basis. This slide basically talks about the placement. And if you look over here, the upper shelves are meant to store foods that don't need cooking, such as our leftovers. The lower or the middle shelves are used to store dairy, such as milks, cheese, yogurt, and butter. The bottom shelf, now remember, this is the coldest part of the fridge, and this is where wrapped raw meat and fish should be placed. Placing raw food on the bottom also minimizes cross-contamination, as we just spoke about. I've spoken about the drawers for vegetables and fruit, and the door shelves, as I said, are the warmest part of the fridge. One can look at storing foods that have natural preservatives here, such as jams and juices. We spoke also about the indirect method of cross-contamination, and one needs to look at cutting boards over here. So preferably go back to using your wooden cutting boards. If time permits, I will explain to you that not only are they organic, but these can be refurbished, and it is pretty easily done. So all those cuts where you accumulate microbes and viruses, you can get rid of them pretty easily. This isn't possible with the plastic cutting boards, and our focus today is on moving away from plastic, using as little plastic in our lives as possible. If one has to use plastic cutting boards, now use separate colored coded cutting boards for different meats or vegetables. One could use a red coded cutting board for raw meat, blue for raw fish, yellow for cooked meats, green for salads and fruits, brown for vegetables, white for dairy products. If you don't get these color coded boards, I'm sure we can all label them accordingly. Now, it's very important to remember not to cross-use a cutting board to cut meat and then straight after use it to slice vegetable or maybe slice some cheese. I'm sure by now you all understand that we would cross-contaminate food. Good housekeeping is very important, and this is most important in our kitchens. Remember, our kitchens become natural breeding grounds for pests like cockroaches, and this is because there's always spillage of food or spillage of liquid, and there's heat, and the two put together make it a very conducive environment for the pests to breed. So our premises and equipment should be easy to clean and disinfect. If we are lucky, maybe if we are designing our own kitchen, remember to design them well. Keep hard, smooth surfaces as your working surfaces. These are easy to clean. Avoid areas where food debris and waste could build up. Avoid crevices. Avoid difficult to clean corners. Now, our cleaning equipment, such as mops, brooms, and cloths, also need to be kept clean. Clean cloths, clean them on a regular basis in hot water. Probably this should be done daily, and soap. One can look at color coding again for the cloths, so different cloths for different areas of the kitchen. And today one has access to disposable cloths. These are also known as kitchen towels, but there is a cost involved over here. So we are doing everything to keep pests away from our kitchen, and pests in the form of insects, birds, or rodents from our food preparation area. For this, we need to be vigilant. We need to be observant. Look for signs of infestation. And it is always a good practice to regularly fumigate our kitchens. These are natural breeding grounds. Always keep your food in closed containers in the kitchen. And we spoke earlier about minimum hands handling food. Minimum food handling also means that we handle the food as little as possible with our hands. So those practices of shoving our fingers regularly into the food need to be eliminated. Use our utensils rather than our hands. We've already spoken about segregation for raw food, for cooked food. Maybe there's segregation in our knives for the different types of meats. These are all good practices. One can look at using disposable gloves, but make sure you have a sufficient number of them. And I'm sure in the confines of our own homes, a good hand washing is always possible. Pets are a strict no-no from the kitchen. Remember that no matter how well groomed your pets are animals, and by nature, they are natural, physical, and microbiological contaminant carriers. Besides this, they do shed a lot of fur, and we know where that fur could get into. Jewelry and rings naturally can hide bacteria under them, but they could also fall into the food and become a physical contaminant. I'm sure by now we understand if we have to reuse plates, basically we do not use a plate that has previously held raw food, but if we need to do that, then it needs to be thoroughly washed. And washing is not only enough, it needs to be disinfected. And if one recalls from our last session, we spoke about how moisture basically aids in the breeding of pathogens. So drying is very important if we want to stop the growth, we want to stop pathogens from multiplying. When we talk about food waste disposal, the mantra is quite easy over here. It is clean as you go. And when we talk about clean as you go, an untidy workspace with food waste and cooked food increases the chances of contamination. So we are into separating garbage, I hope by now, so wet and dry garbage. When we look at wet garbage, there is a lot of wet garbage which can be composted and used as fertilizer in our kitchen gardens, in our back gardens. So maybe that's something that we can look at. Our containers, many a times, our waste containers are hotbeds, so to speak, of bacteria. So ensure that they are clean as well. And remember that we need to disinfect all the areas that have been in contact with food waste. It is not only important that you clean, but disinfection is very important. Wrapping leftovers in leak-proof plastic bags is a good practice. As we almost wind up with our session, we have food here as the central character. with a number of attackers all around it. And it begins with the raw materials, which by their very nature would have a lot of pathogens in them. We know that the quality of water is very important when it comes to not only washing, but while using this water for our cooking purposes. We are always surrounded by air and dust. Soil is a problem. Sewage, we have spoken about. We understand the danger that rodents and insects bring to food. Animals and birds is also what we have talked about. Packaging material. Now remember, viruses, bacteria, the COVID-19 virus, they settle on surfaces. So when you're handling packaging materials, we need to be careful, more so when we are going on to then handle food. Right at the top of this list, I would say, is the hygiene of the food handler, that is us. This cannot be stressed on enough. And to sum up our session today, the ways to prevent food poisoning are basically with a good hand wash and use soap and water before and after preparing food, before eating food, after eating food. We've spoken about how raw food needs to be separated from cooked food. This is in all spheres of the kitchen, right from our cutting boards, right from our work tables to our refrigerators. We have spoken about how we are using separate cooking utensils and plates for raw food as well as cooked foods. And we also see here at the end the rinsing of produce. Now, the rinsing of produce is a little different for fruits and vegetables and uncooked or meats or poultry. And this is where we will begin with our session next Sunday. I thank you for your attention, and it is over to our General Secretary, Jovito Lopez, to take us forward.
Thank you, Kenneth, for sharing with us the basics of food hygiene. But remember that food hygiene is part of food safety, and safety starts much, much earlier. I'm sure you have some doubts, some questions, and maybe you would like to add to what we have shared with you, because this is available to all of us. We know most of the things, and we need to share whatever you would like to share with us. You need just to raise your hand, and we know that we have to listen to you.
Alternatively, anybody could unmute themselves, introduce yourself, and ask or share whatever you have to share with us. There is also an option of chatting. So those who are shy maybe of speaking up could drop us a line in the chat box, and we would take up your question or query and get back to you.
Please raise your hand should you want to shoot a question to us. I don't see anyone. I think Branka, would you like?
I would like to be enlightened on how to disinfect the kitchen platforms.
Okay, disinfection of kitchen platforms. We will, when we start the next session, because we are doing a lot of this type of question and answers. When we begin our next, and that is disinfection washing. So can you hold on for just a few days, so that this is part of our next program.
Okay.
Thank you, Branka. Barbara, I can see Barbara. Do you want to ask anything, Barbara? You have to unmute. You have to unmute and ask the question. I can see also Altino. Altino, would you like to share something? You need to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, right. If something could be shared a little bit more about how to get rid of viruses, maybe in a house, on surfaces or whatever.
Okay, so that's again,
Viruses in particular.
yeah, that is disinfection per se. We will talk about it when we start our next session. We will talk about the disinfection. What are the methods that we can use at home?
Okay, right.
Basically, the 30 minutes are over, but I think Barbara, you can raise your question.
Okay. I just no, I'm waiting to hear about disinfecting the fruits and vegetables next week.
Yes. That is coming. That is coming.
Disinfecting
That is coming. That's a
next
special
week, yeah.
special program on that only. So that disinfection and
Yeah.
washing of fruits, vegetables, all that. Then meats, should they be washed or not? That also is coming in the next Sunday session.
Okay, we wait for them.
Yeah, I think there being no other questions, we are right at the end. It's 30 minutes, a little over 30 minutes. And we thank each and every one of you for being with us. And we need to acknowledge the assistance provided to us by Father Orville de Silva, as well as Father Anderson Fernandez. These are both Jesuits. One is in Raya and the other one is Porvorim. The linkage has been done because of these two Jesuits who have been helping us right from the beginning. Also, a big thank you to the Daughters of St. Paul. They are our neighbors here in Panjim, and they have been supporting these programs. And to each and every one of you who make it a point to be with us every Sunday from 5 to 5:30. God protect each and every one of you, your families, and we pray that we all are spared of this COVID virus. So stay safe, take all the precautions, and God will protect us. So prayers are the need of the hour.